Holy Lord. Welcome to the 1000 Comics Podcast. This is the 7th episode. I'd like to thank a rising young star in comedy, Riley Edwards, for pointing out to me that the 6th episode of the show is listed as the 5th episode. There's a continuity error. I might just stop saying what number episode we're on every episode. It might get confusing. I edited a lot of these out of order, so sometimes you never know. The person I recorded last might be down the road in the show. So this will be the last time I say what number episode we're on at the beginning of the show. No longer necessary. It says it right in the title there. You don't need it. Furthermore, I'd like people to hit subscribe when they listen to the podcast. I got a decent following now of people. I can see that, but nobody's subscribing to the podcast. Come on, you gotta. If you're not gonna sponsor the show, at least hit the subscribe button. All right, we got a great show for you today. We got John Hyne and Rachel Blavatnik. I said it right. Rachel? Rachel Blavatnik on the show. One of the great couples in South Florida comedy. I'm hoping these kids get hitched. I was trying to get them hitched on the show today. You know, they're good. John's still in school, man. He's trying to get some stuff done in his life. This guy, this girl Rachel, though, I'm pretty sure she wants him to put a ring on the finger. Though. I think this show helps. It was almost like a marriage counseling session we had going on today's show. So you're in for a treat. I'd just like to say that the 1000 Comics Podcast is looking for sponsors. If you'd like to sponsor the show, you can send an email to matthewheath.saga@gmail.com. That's matthewheath, SAGA @gmail.com. Until then, I'm pretty much sponsoring myself. You can check out my comedy album, which is located right here on this YouTube page. It's called Matt Heath, Class Clown Revisited. Also, if you'd like to buy my play, Renaissance Men, on Amazon.com, you go right ahead. You type in Matt Heath in the search bar in Amazon, and Renaissance Men will pop right up. And guess what? You'll have something to read. It'll be nice. Be nice to have some books in the house, you know? All right. I would just like to, speaking of books, I would like to give you guys the 1000 Comics Podcast vocabulary word of the day, which is malleable. Malleable. Able to be hammered or pressed permanently, out of shape, without breaking or cracking. So, literally easily bendable. Easily bendable. But that's the first definition. How it's used how it's used on the show today is the second definition. Malleable. Easily influenced or pliable. So look for today's vocab word on the show. You'll hear it. And without further ado, this is my interview with John Hyne and Rachel Blavatnik. All right, welcome to the 1000 Comics Podcast. I'm sitting here with John Hyne and Rachel Blavatnik. Did I pronounce your last name right?
It was super close. I'm excited by the attempt. Blavatnik. See?
Blavatnik.
You're putting an extra L in there.
Blavatnik.
There you go.
Blavatnik. Oh, hey! I've tried to say your name. I've been practicing.
Oh, wow.
Because I got the little poster of us from when we all did that Trella show, and I'm like, man, John and Rachel are going to be on the show. Your last name's on the poster, and I'm like, Blavatnik. But I didn't get it right. It's Blavatnik.
There you go.
You got it.
3 quick syllables.
And you guys are one of the famous South Florida comedy couples.
That's us.
Yeah.
One of the originals.
Yeah.
What are the
Still
originals?
going strong.
That's right.
How long have you two been together?
About 4 years now.
Yeah, 4 years next week.
Yeah.
Wow, 4 years next week. So your anniversary's coming up, huh?
Yeah. We don't really have like an official anniversary because we were kind of. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when we started dating instead of just like hanging out or whatever. But yeah, next week. What do we say? The
27th.
27th is our the date we selected for our anniversary.
How'd you two meet, anyways?
Through comedy.
Doing comedy.
Through comedy.
Yeah.
What? So it was a show you met at, open mic?
We would see each other at open mics for months before we started dating. We officially met, I guess, at Dada's.
Yeah.
At their open mic.
You officially met at Dada's. That's a bit of a romantic place, don't you think? No?
Yeah, got the nice lighting, get the fancy drinks. Like, you can't go wrong.
Did you buy Rachel an expensive drink at Dada's?
No.
No, I think he looked up from his phone once and said hi.
Yeah. No, if anything, I was probably bringing my own beer into Dada's at that point. But
were you? Who was flirting with who more so? You think back then?
Careful with this answer.
I don't know. I think we always got along, and I don't know who really was more flirty in the beginning, but we were both kind of flirty. You like to hug me a lot.
No, I think you just like to get hugged a lot.
Well, that could be true too.
As a female comedian, you kind of have to hug everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, we could do the hashtag Me Too.
Or you hug nobody.
Or you hug nobody. You could be that person too.
Right. Those are the options.
That's right.
Well, me, I when it comes to me dating comedians, me dating female comedians, the longest relationship I've had is 2 weeks, I think.
Okay.
That's the longest I've been able to hold a relationship with a comedian.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, before I was with Rachel, I never had a relationship. My longest relationship was about a month before I got with Rachel.
Did you two always wear similar glasses?
I mean, we always wore glasses. But
probably not. I was wearing another pair for a while, but they got a little banged up, so now I'm in these.
So you wanted to get a pair that kind of...
No, these were my spare pair that I already had.
They're your spare pair.
Mm-hmm. Maybe they're his. I don't know.
I don't know, because I think you guys have always had like a Millhouse's parents thing, wearing the similar glasses and whatnot.
Yeah, maybe.
What they say is that if you can see yourself in somebody else's glasses, you're a good match. I don't think anybody's actually ever
Confucius
said
that. I think you're the first that people are going to be quoting John Hyne years from now. If you can see yourself in somebody else's glasses.
Walk a mile in somebody else's shoes and look at a mile worth of pictures in their glasses.
Lens Crafters is going to start coming after you for commercials, man. I'm telling you.
Hey, I'm open. I need money. I'll take it.
Okay, so you two met in comedy about 4 years ago. How long have both of you been doing comedy?
I have been doing comedy. The first time I got on stage was in 2010, but I didn't start seriously doing it until late 2011. So about 8 years.
8 years. And where was your first time on stage?
My first time on stage was up in Orlando at a place called what's the name of it now? An English pub. I forget the name of it now. It's not a room anymore. But where I really started was down here at Foster's Pub, which was a show Wendy Starling was running when I moved down here. And then that's where I was going like regularly. That's where I started going like every week.
Okay, so there's not really a scene in Orlando that you were a part of, or
There's actually a good scene in Orlando. And since I moved back down here, I've gone back up to Orlando and done a lot of stuff. But when I did it in Orlando, I just wasn't that into comedy at the time. Like I was doing it just to kind of try it to see if I liked it, and I did. But I got caught up in work and school and other stuff, and I just kind of. I only did it like a handful of times in Orlando. Then I moved down here and got back into it.
okay? How about you, Rachel?
I'm almost 5 years now.
Okay.
So that was fun. And I got started, I did the improv class originally. I did comedy when I was a little kid years ago, but I sort of lost I'm able to be on stage and talk in front of a large group of people. So that's why I did the improv class, was to get back in that. And then
So you started with the improv.
Started with the improv class. That went well, and then immediately started going to open mics. Probably cut my teeth most at the old Hurricanes in Boca. That was my home for a little while.
Do you remember who taught the improv class?
That was Will Watkins.
Will Watkins. Don't know him, but he's still on the scene.
He lives in New York now and is doing extremely well up there.
Right.
So.
But after a few years after taking a class, do you think classes? I always was a firm believer that any classes in comedy are kind of a ripoff.
It depends on what you're using them for.
Right.
Again, I needed a safe space where I could say the 5-minute set over and over again and not be afraid the audience was going to throw tomatoes at me. So once we got through that, it worked.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
But it didn't actually really teach me to write a joke.
Right.
I don't know. It might help some people with that, but not so much for me.
I don't think there's ever going to be a class that will take an unfunny person and make them funny. But I think classes can help somebody be a better performer or just like tighten up their writing and get more on track to be on stage.
So you think the comedy classes like main purpose is to help people just get over stage fright, the initial stage fright of doing stand-up comedy?
I think that's a lot of it, yeah.
I think if they're seriously looking into becoming a comedian, then yes. I think a lot of it's like a bucket list thing. I'm going to do a 5-minute set at the Improv, and a lot of people never go beyond that.
Yeah, I didn't start with the comedy class, but when Eric Myers was teaching the class, I was I was friends with him, and I would drive him around a lot, and I ended up sitting in on a lot of his classes, so I got the experience of that, but I don't think there's anybody from that class that's still doing stand-up now. Like, I think most of the people who take the improv classes end up stopping after a short time. I think it's just kind of like a dream that they go for and get on stage once or twice and then stop.
It's interesting that you put it like that, though, because I think most comedians will just dive in head first and start doing it if they really want to do it. And then it's like, I don't even know if it would be like 50-50 when it comes to comedy classes. It's like...
I don't think it'd be 50-50.
It's like a handful of people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, out of 100 people who take the improv class, I would say maybe 7 or 8 of them will actually continue doing stand-up.
Yeah, I think I'm the only one from my group still. There
Yeah.
was one other for a little while, but he hasn't been out in years.
Yeah. But the people that take them, that's not what they're looking for, though. You know, at least in my mind, the majority of those people are... It's like going skydiving or taking a scuba class when you're in the Bahamas. You know, it's an idea to do like a one-time event that you think will be fun, and you're not really intending to pursue it as a career or as a passion. You know.
Don't you think it's a little irritating though that the people that'll do these comedy classes though, and then like they'll do the one graduation set. And then they'll be the people that they'll say to you that I used to do stand-up comedy. And it's like, well,
yeah.
No, you really didn't.
Right. I mean, yes and no. Like I've had this argument before with other comics, and the way I think of it is like if you were a pro golfer and you went out on the weekend to a golf course and you just saw a bunch of guys getting drunk on the golf course and hitting balls around to nowhere, I don't think you as a pro golfer would feel like that demean the sport of golf or what you're doing just because these people want to get drunk and have a good time while they're doing it on their weekend. You know, like you can have both. You can have a respect for the craft and know that you yourself are pursuing something better, and that doesn't have you don't have to be dragged down by people that aren't taking it that way.
That is an amazing metaphor for stand-up comedy. Would you agree with that, Rachel?
I completely agree with that. Yeah, I mean, there are people who it's, again, bucket list, a hobby, whatever you want to make it, and there are people who are trying to pursue this as a career.
Right. And I don't think there's anything wrong if you want to do it as a hobby. You know, if you want to go out once or twice a month or a couple times a year or even just one time, you know. Because anything like, as comics, we have to foster a love for comedy. And if people are doing it, even if they're doing it for one time, that shows that they have some interest in comedy. And maybe they won't pursue doing it themselves, but they'll buy tickets to a comedy show. So it's a good thing.
Yeah. Would you say you've had that love for comedy your entire life?
Yes, I've always appreciated comedy. I loved more when I was younger. I loved more sitcoms and things like The Simpsons is my all-time favorite.
Simpsons is obviously me too. You can see on my laptop I got Homer Simpson eating the apple.
That's great. But yeah, I love cleverness. Like that's what I like a quick turn of phrase or something that shows intelligence in a fun way. And comedy is the best place to find that, I think.
And what about you? Would you say you had that love for comedy?
Always loved it, addicted to it, I would say. When I was young, I grew up in New York City, and my mom would actually take me to the Comedy Cellar when I was a teenager.
Really?
And we would just sit in the audience, and I don't know why she would let me do this, but we would just sit there till like 2 a.m. till they kicked us out. So, I mean, and this was in the 80s, so I saw a lot of people come up who have really made it. Sarah Silverman was actually the host of the open mic that started at midnight.
Really?
Yes. So that was very cool. And, you know, Ray Romano would come through there all the time. Like, we just saw everybody.
You must have a couple stories from then.
Not too much, because I was about 14 or so, and so they weren't really going to mess with me too much. Dave Attell once said something, I don't remember exactly what he said, but he said something nasty to me when I was in college there. He was at my dorm with a very drunk female, and I happened to recognize him. And he wasn't someone you would normally recognize at that point. And he, instead of being sort of gracious about it, at first he said something snarky, and then he realized he should be a little bit more gracious. It wasn't like I was going to call the Inquirer and say, hey, he's here.
Right. Yeah, at that point, I think their response would have been like, who?
Yeah. Was he being snarky, though? Because you were like, hey, David Tell, what are you doing with a teenager in my dorm?
No, all I said was, I recognize you. And to be fair, it was a college thing, so she was of age. Whatever they want to do, it was fine with me. All I was doing was signing them in.
Oh, so you were working the desk.
I was working the desk.
You were like you were the RA and David Tell.
Yeah.
Did David Tell sign in?
He probably did.
Did you check David Tell's ID? Or I know you.
I think the security guard did that, but yes.
You know, it's always been my goal in comedy to be famous enough to be recognized by an RA at a dorm building. So.
Oh, I wish I'd been an RA. I wasn't that good. I was just a desk attendant.
I did not like RAs in college. I did everything in college to make sure the RAs' lives were much harder. I have no idea why. I guess I was very defiant back then.
Oh, right, just an authority thing.
Yeah, no, that was not a job I would have ever wanted. I don't want to ever bust a bunch of 19-year-olds for having beer in their dorm room. I don't care. Enjoy. Just don't do anything stupid.
Yeah, I never actually stayed in the dorm, so I don't know. I went up to Orlando, but I was in a student apartment with a couple other kids, so I never had to deal with RAs.
So what was your college experience like, John?
I mean, it was all right. I got my AA down here at the community college. Then I went up to UCF. I didn't like UCF. I actually ended up leaving before I finished my bachelor's, which is why I'm going back to school now to try to finish my bachelor's back at PBSC.
Holy Lord, you're going back to school to finish your bachelor's?
Yeah.
Oh boy. How old are you?
30. I'll turn 33 this year.
Kudos to you, man, for going back to finish your bachelor. A lot of people, once you get to that age, they're just like, all right, fuck it.
Yeah.
I'm done with school.
Yeah, which is very tempting, but I want a job where I can make a little more money, so I gotta get some type of degree.
That's what it's all about, right? What
That's right.
about you? You got a bachelor's, master's?
I have a bachelor's of fine arts from New York University in writing. So I was the comedy writer even in college.
In writing.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a writing major?
Playwriting and screenwriting major in the film school.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I was thinking about? I was actually just thinking about this on the drive over here today, and I'm wondering what other people think about this, because I was an English major in college,
Mm-hmm.
and I was an English major because I wanted to be a writer, and mainly in my head I always wanted to be a comedy writer. I was a communications major at first. That's so you want to get into television, you're going to be a communications major. But then somebody along the line told me, well, if you want to be a comedy writer, you should really be an English major because they're going to teach you how to write in English classes. Which, in a sense, was true. I did learn script writing, and I learned all that. And I learned a lot more, I think, in English classes than I would have learned in communications classes. But here's the thing. When I got out of college, the whole writing for television thing didn't really pan out the way I thought it would.
Yeah.
I became a teacher, but the whole flip side of that is I'm an English teacher now, and everyone else at the school that I teach at, all the English teachers don't have degrees in English. They have degrees in communication.
Yeah, it kind of comes full circle there. Yeah, it's a little weird, and I don't know if it's different in other states, but with Florida, you can get your bachelor's in anything and teach. So it kind of just you get a different pool of people, I guess.
It goes pretty much. I mean, teaching's a little different, but in life, I mean, things change, and so college is what you make of it. You can study anything you want, and then almost, unless you need something specialized, like for med school, you can go and do whatever you want. I had someone I knew who was at Yale as an English concentration, and she decided she wanted to go into theater and was going to take an extra year at Yale. I said, why? She said, so I can change majors and go into theater. And I said, why? She said, because when somebody asks me as a director why I didn't major in theater, I'm going to have a weird answer. I said, nobody is ever going to ask you that.
Yeah.
If you're a good director, nobody is going to care what you majored in. And I find that true in most fields.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much that way. All they care about is that you have the bachelor's degree,
Right.
as you have the piece of paper.
Right.
No, what you majored in, really doesn't matter at the end of the day. But the thing with me is that I feel like people in schools, like high school, they want people with degrees in education, focusing in education. They don't want English teachers that were English major.
Right.
It's weird because we're the ones that care about literature. We're the ones that actually have read everything that you need to read.
Mm-hmm. I taught for 4 months this past year, and I couldn't stand it, so I left. But what I found was I think if I'd taken education classes, I probably would have had a better time. Because knowing books and knowing proper use of the English language seemed to be the least important thing in this school.
It really doesn't matter. It's all about knowing how to psychologically control children.
Classroom management, that was what I was missing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't, I don't know, I don't feel like one of the best teachers there was having trouble determining, the difference between a subject and an object in a sentence. And I couldn't believe that, but she's like head of the department there. So I was like, okay, I understand what's important here and what's not, but it wasn't for me.
So you taught for the past what grade did you teach?
6th grade,
And what subject?
English.
Oh, I see. You were an English teacher too, and we're both not in that that area anymore. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? Because I'm enjoying
left
talking
after
about
4
this.
months. I was at a school in Riviera Beach, and it's not a well-performing school. And I started in the middle of the year,
Right.
and left in the middle of the year, and it was just the kids and I were not connecting. It's a very low-performing school, like I said. So I wasn't really sure how to connect with them. And that's where I think the education major might have had a better shot at that, because it didn't seem to be about necessarily teaching them English. It was sort of teaching them how to be in school. A lot of these kids, they should not have been at the grade level they were. They certainly weren't reading at that level.
Oh, it was the same way in the school that I taught at, that the kids are not they're not ready for the material
Exactly.
that you're giving. But the thing that irritated me with teaching was I taught 11th grade. I taught 11th grade English, and what you're traditionally supposed to teach is what I wanted to teach, and I went ahead and taught that.
Okay.
The Great Gatsby. I taught 11th grade, so it's like The Great Gatsby, The Catcher in the Rye, Raisin in the Sun, Death of a Salesman. Those were the books that I taught in the past year.
Okay.
The administration went ahead and looked at me like I was doing. They even used the term experimental education, because I wasn't teaching out of the textbook that they had. It was
Right.
And what high school uses a textbook
for
in English class?
Yeah, I mean, my middle
ridiculous.
schoolers were not reading books. Everything was textbook or on the computer, but I was thinking that was weird, but at least they were just 6th graders.
Yeah.
By 11th grade, you should be reading a book.
Yeah.
The school systems are so messed up because they want these test scores to go up.
Yes.
Right?
It's also focused on the testing.
It's also focused on the testing. They want the test scores to go up. So you have to do all this BS to try to get the test scores to go up. But isn't the whole reason to go to school to school to learn the things that I basically just listed, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, especially in an English class, because English, it's as when you're talking about literature and stuff, it's a kind of a subjective thing. So it's hard to make a test that really shows you understand it, when you can focus on teaching a book and you can learn all those same things. Like, the test wants you to learn like personification and literary devices and all of that. You can learn that from reading The Great Gatsby and seeing how they're used in the novel, But
Exactly.
It is odd to hear that that teaching the novels is experimental.
Yes, teaching novels has become experimental education. It's a brave new world we're living in.
Interesting.
Well, maybe you could do like a Snapchat of you reading the novel and send it to the kids, and then it would be like technological learning, and you could get like extra money or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, after they laid me off at the school, that's when I kind of just checked out and my classroom just became a movie theater. We watched Indiana Jones.
Great literature.
School of Rock.
Nice.
All right, so let's get away from the education. The podcasters don't want to hear about education. Who did you guys idolize in comedy growing up?
That's a good question.
I don't know. Growing up, trying to think of who were some of my favorites when I was younger. I liked SNL a lot when I was younger in the 90s season, so Phil Hartman.
Okay,
and,
the 90s were what I was all... Chris Farley was like the funniest person on the planet.
Yeah, Chris Farley was great. Really, everybody on that 90s cast was really good. Dana Carvey was so funny. I think Phil Hartman was probably my favorite of that group. But I liked kind of all that 90s alt comedy. Like, I loved Kids in the Hall.
Yeah.
So like those type of people are the ones that I would say I
Why
most.
Phil Hartman?
I think Phil Hartman had a big range. I think he was somebody who could kind of play in every scene that they gave him and work, where some of the other ones were more specific. Like Chris Farley was very funny, I agree, but whenever he was in a skit, it was a Chris Farley skit. Like Phil Hartman could be in the background and still be funny and not have to have he could work in any.
Well, he was a great supporting, but he's still playing the same character in pretty much everything. I feel like even the lawyer caveman. It's him doing Phil Hartman. You know what I mean?
I don't know if I I'd agree with that because I'm trying to think like the anal retentive chef. That was a very different kind of character, and I'm starting to think of some of the other ones.
Yeah,
Clinton. It was brilliant.
Clinton was a great impersonation. I mean, I think they were all a very talented group. But I don't know. I feel like he had a little more range than the rest of them.
How do you feel about the way he went out? His wife
It's horrible.
Yeah.
No, it's a tragedy. Like anytime, these things it seems kind of go in circles and cycles, but mental health has always been a problem for people in entertainment. One way, either from their own personal doing or because they associate closely with people who have mental problems, which is something that happens when you are emotionally unstable yourself, so.
Well, you guys are both comics and you're dating. You're not going home and doing a bunch of drugs, are you?
Not at all.
No, I always do my drugs on the outside of home.
I appreciate that. Doesn't smell up the house.
You're not thinking about shooting John, are you, Rachel?
Not at all. I'm very anti-gun, so no.
No, actually, after we watched Gone Girl, we made a no murder pact. Like, no matter what happens in our relationship, we've agreed to not murder each other.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how binding that is. If somebody decides to break the agreement, I don't know if that really
it better
helps.
be binding.
But
I meant it.
So who did you idolize?
I grew up a little before John. I was in that sort of like late 80s comic relief era, so I was a huge fan of like Robert Klein, Robin Williams. I know it's not PC to say it, but I was a big Roseanne fan.
All right, who cares about what's
exactly.
PC? All right,
I agree with that.
The fact that
she's brilliant.
Roseanne is she's splashing the waters right now. But back when she had her sitcom, she ruined the national anthem, and no one seemed to care about that.
Well,
back
they
then.
did care, but it wasn't on Twitter, so
Right.
it was a little bit different back then. That was a big deal.
Oh yeah, no, people made a big deal out of that, but they've always known, like you're saying, that Roseanne is nuts. She's been nuts for 20 years, but she does make a good product. Like the original sitcom was genius, and it paved the way for a lot of the stuff that we see on TV now. So whether or not somebody's crazy, they can still make a good piece of art.
And then beyond that, just I love strong women comedians. I was a huge fan of Joan Rivers. I liked Ellen, although I haven't really watched her talk show ever, but I liked her stand-up.
I just watched the episode of Larry Sanders the other day. Did you guys ever watch that show?
I didn't
Not
really. I did watch the Gary Shandling show, but that was a different show.
Is he an actual talk show host? I think is a Gary.
No, the Gary Shandling show.
What's he doing on the Gary Shandling?
It was a sitcom that made fun of the fact that he was on a sitcom. So
everything he does is so meta theatric.
It's completely meta. He talks to the audience. If you have a chance, listen to the theme song of the Gary Shandling show. It's one of the most brilliant pieces of songwriting I've ever heard. No, but it was I didn't watch Larry Sanders though for whatever reason.
I might have to give you guys the Larry Sanders box set. There's an episode because there's a Roseanne. Well, it's funny because there's a season where he hooks up he starts dating Roseanne.
Oh yeah.
And then there's an episode where his producer is trying to get Ellen to come on his show so they could have the coming out of the closet story for Ellen. And then Ellen ends up having sex with Larry Sanders. So he doesn't know is she really a lesbian or not? And I think back then, because that's when it was all going on, it was is Ellen a lesbian or is she not? That episode of Larry Sanders was to really confuse people if you were watching it,
Kind of brilliant.
Yeah. Throw people off the trail, I guess.
So strong female comedians. I gotta say, Ellen is probably one of the best female talk show hosts.
Okay, like I said, I don't really watch her talk show much, but I could see that. 'Cause she's very smart, she's very nice, and she's funny, she's real, and she loves silly.
Why do you think there's no women in late night? There's no female late night talk show hosts?
There's been a few.
Chelsea lately, but how come there's no...
Samantha Bee.
How come they're not in the mainstream?
I think...
There's just more male comics to begin with.
Right.
So that's a big part of it. Joan Rivers had her
Joan
own show
Rivers
for
had
a
a
little
show
while.
for a little while.
Was it late
Yeah.
night though?
It was because she used to fill in for Johnny Carson a lot.
Right,
And then,
right.
She was on, I think, on Fox. She had a talk show, which I think became eventually the Arsenio Hall show.
Oh, really?
I think.
Huh.
I'm not positive about that.
Yeah. Fox was in talks with Wanda Sykes to give her a late night show, but that never happened, I guess, recently. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it hasn't, because there are a lot of very clever female comedians right now, and people that I think have the space to do a late night show and have would fit a good demographic. But I don't know. I think that the idea of nightly late night entertainment is kind of, it's not completely in the past yet, but I think we're moving beyond it. I don't think people are watching late shows as much.
That's all the more reason to have a female host, though. It changes things up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would support it. I wanted to see some female comic get the spot that Stephen Colbert took eventually. David Letterman's spot. I would have loved to have seen a female in there, either Wanda Sykes or Chelsea Handler.
Well, why not Rachel Blavatnik?
That'd be great too.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Then I could live on swag bags from the green room. That'd be awesome.
I like how that's where your mind goes. You're immediately you don't get jealous. You're just immediately thinking about riding the coattails.
Oh yeah,
of the situation.
yeah. Listen, I'm gonna play the cards life deals me, man.
I'll have you be like my Ed McMahon.
Yeah.
Stand on the side and make comments. It'll be great. We'll just banter.
Yeah.
So you're definitely not now, because this is the Phil Hartman thing is still on my mind. You're definitely not shooting her, but I still don't know.
You're not shooting, John. Trust me.
No, I don't think Rachel could do anything violent. I don't think she has it in her. She can't. She's terrified of bugs, and she couldn't kill a bug.
No.
So I'm not afraid of violence from her end.
Not at all. I mean, if I had like a big can of spray and it was like 20 feet away, no.
So how come you haven't put a ring on it yet? What's going on, John?
We just we're moving along here. We're not.
I'm putting you on the hot seat now.
Well, actually, I was planning to. No. No, I'm not going to get engaged on your podcast, Matt. But I don't know. I mean, things are going well, so I don't.
I actually just picked up an engagement. See that box that I was holding? That was an engagement ring from a pawn shop that I just picked up.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Are you going to propose to me?
No. Here's what I do. Here's the thing. I bought some time ago an engagement ring because I thought if I put an engagement ring on layaway, and I thought, by the time I have this engagement ring paid off, I will have found the person I'll found the woman I'm gonna put this ring on. I ended up picking up the ring, and now I have this engagement ring, and I don't have anybody to give it to. It didn't pan out like I thought it would. But the great thing about having the engagement ring is, when I get depressed that I got nobody to be, I have this engagement. I could take a loan out on the engagement ring.
Okay.
And go on a trip, and that's what I do. Is it ironic at all that the trips that I go on are usually to friends' weddings?
Just don't book the honeymoon suite. That's where it gets too weird.
No, that's an interesting way to set your goals, though. Like if I get this ring, I'll find somebody for the ring. That's a good way of thinking. Like you should, like maybe rent out a theater, and by the time that you pay for the theater, you'll be able to fill it with comedy tickets, with people seeing your comedy.
Yeah, well, I think that is a way to do it. What if I were to, book a room in Connecticut and just start trying to sell book it for like the end of the year and just try to sell all the tickets online? I
mean, it could work. The downside is you can't pawn the stage time if it doesn't work.
That's right.
And use it for loans to go to friends' weddings. But
that's true. I could always make false promises of who's going to be there.
And then just say, "Oh, sorry, they didn't show up."
It's just me.
Right before the show, legally change your name to Chris Rock, and then.
Oh, you meant that, Chris Rock? No, sorry.
Is that legal to change your stage name, to change your name in real life to someone who has a popular stage name?
I don't know.
And then sell tickets.
I don't know. I mean, I think you would have to be very careful about how you worded the advertising, because you can't promise that, you couldn't have, a picture of Chris Rock and say, Chris Rock.
Of course not. You can't have a picture of Chris Rock. But at the same time, Chris Rock's got brothers. What if,
and there are other people in the world named Chris Rock that aren't the Chris Rock.
I'm sure people have done this to the Wayans brothers, though.
Yeah.
Somebody has changed their last name to Wayne, so they would be mistaken that, he's one of the Wayans. He's not one of the Wayans brothers that I've seen in the movie.
Oh, right,
but he's A. Wayans, but he must be funny.
Yeah.
And then you go see the show, and then who knows? Maybe
I don't think that would work for any of us, though.
Yeah, it's pretty clear none of us are a Wayans brother.
Particularly me.
But yeah, I don't know. What's his name? Gallagher has a twin brother who tours the country doing his act.
Doing Gallagher's act?
Yeah.
And it's the same act?
Yeah, the same act. Well, except for the watermelon smashing. They have this
That's
whole
the
agreement.
only thing I know about
I know.
He's actually a funny stand-up comic. The watermelon smashing's awful, and he's not nice.
Yeah. I heard he freaked out on Mark Maron's podcast. I haven't listened to it yet.
I haven't heard it. Yeah, but I've heard a few stories about Gallagher that he is a crazy person.
I worked with him. He's not a nice person.
Yeah.
You don't want to work with
You've
him.
worked with Gallagher.
Not as a comic, as a producer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't open for him or anything.
All right, dude. Tell me a little bit about your work as a producer.
Yeah,
You've had to handle certain.
Oh, I've been doing that for years.
Celebrities?
Oh, a lot of them. Mostly, B level, but yeah.
All right. So what was the job? You were a producer for what?
I've worked at a lot of different theaters. So this was at a theater in Martin County, and he came in to do his show. And basically, it was to represent the venue and make sure he had what he needed, from housing to transportation to food to whatever he needed in his dressing room. Make sure all the watermelons were there, that kind of thing.
Did you really have to make sure watermelons were there?
I don't remember having to do that, but I do remember having to visqueen the theater. We had to put black plastic everywhere. Everywhere, on every seat, had to be covered.
In black plastic?
Yes.
So when the smashing of the fruit happened...
Yes. There was stuff on the ceiling for about 6 months afterwards.
Really?
Yeah, that stuff goes far. Don't book him. He messes up your place.
So why was he an asshole, though?
He came in and he just wasn't happy about the venue. And this was a very long time ago, so I don't really remember the specifics. But I just remember coming in and yelling immediately, just complaining and yelling, and there was very little to appease him.
Really?
There was. But, like I said, his actual stand-up before he starts smashing stuff is very funny. It's very clever.
Yeah, well, I think he's put out more HBO specials than any other comedian, I believe. I might be wrong about that.
I've never seen one of his HBO specials.
Yeah.
I don't think that would be right.
Well, I know he set some record for specials. It might not have been HBO, but he set some record for the most special. It was HBO or Showtime or one of them. But so he has a large body of work.
Mm-hmm.
He's done several different hours of comedy.
He's been in the business for 40 years now.
Yeah.
Do you have any other stories of working as a producer in the theater?
Depends what you want to hear. I've been doing it for years.
I want to hear more asshole-ish demands of celebrities.
There weren't that many asshole-ish demands. I didn't get along with Barbara Cook, but she died earlier this year, so I don't want to say that. And none of you out there know who that is, so you can Google her. She was in The Music Man. But no, not really. Most celebrities actually are pretty nice. Most actors are pretty nice because most people don't get ahead if you don't want to work with them.
Of course.
So honestly, there aren't that many interesting stories.
Well, in any entertainment field, they're small communities. Like ultimately, you meet a producer of a show down in Florida. They've worked with every producer in New York at some point. So if somebody's a jerk, word travels, and people don't want to work with them. So entertainment is it's a tight knit group. So you got to be careful how you act when you're trying to make it.
All right. Do you have any stories just in general of being a producer, though?
Well, like I said, I did regional theater for many, many years. So putting on plays and musicals. For comedy's sake, I've worked with David Brenner before he passed away, Shelley Berman also before he passed away.
Okay.
David Brenner was very nice, very quiet. Shelley Berman, I just remember, was upset because there were pickles backstage on the deli tray that he requested, and he said the whole place was going to smell like pickles. So that was the main thing I remember. And he didn't like the chair that we had on set for him, so we had to go out and buy a new stool for him. So
a brand new stool.
A brand new stool, because he didn't like the one we had.
Oh.
So that was easy. That was not a big deal. But no, I used to handle large casts of musicals. I've toured with musicals. So it's a overwhelming job, I would say, but I enjoyed my time doing it.
So you spent all this time working in show business, and then one day you turned around and decided you wanted to do stand-up comedy.
I did, and that was actually part of it. I worked a lot of long hours, and although I, like I said, enjoyed it, there was something missing. I needed to do something that was just about me, and because also when you work all the time, especially down here in a regional theater, the people that you mostly work with go away within a number of weeks when the show's over. So summers were very lonely. So I said, I need something. I need to find a new group of friends. I've been wanting to do comedy for years, so I'm going to just jump in and do it. And it's flourished into something amazing. And I met him.
and you two met, yeah. Well, what do you think, John? But what about your background in show business? You have any background in show business besides stand-up comedy?
No, I don't. I mean, I never really. I went to school with a lot of people who started doing comedy in high school, like Will Watkins, who you said you didn't know Will, but he was a big figure in the South Florida scene before he moved into New York. And
I should have him on the show one day.
Yeah, if he ever comes down, you should definitely have him on. He's a good guy. He's good to talk to. But he started doing stand up in high school, so I knew of it as an option, but I never really thought of doing anything in entertainment until when I was up in Orlando. The first time I got on stage doing anything was karaoke. They had karaoke nightly at this bar that I like to go to, and I discovered when I got drunk, I liked being on stage and singing. So
still does.
Yeah, I still do. That's still true. But after a while, I decided if I enjoy being on stage, I don't know
if I'd want to see that.
It's a show. It's a show, and I have a decent voice. I have a karaoke good voice. But I decided maybe I'd try something that I might actually be good at. So I wrote a set, and I found an open mic, and I did 2 or 3 shows up there, and then I ended up moving back down to South Florida a couple months later, and that's when I really started going for it down here.
All right. I got to apologize to you guys because I usually write a comedy sketch for the comedians and I to read on the podcast. And I didn't get a chance because I had such a busy day. There was a lot of traffic coming back. How'd you guys get? You guys didn't hit any traffic on the way over here?
I think we caught the very end of it. On 95, there was a tow truck picking up a busted up car. So I think we caught. Yeah. I think we caught the end of it.
Oh, I think my traffic was different. It was some really big fat guy getting arrested. One time I drove by, but I didn't see any car accident.
Well, maybe he was running from the wrecked car. I don't know.
Maybe he wrecked the car.
Yeah.
But the premise of the sketch that I wanted to write for us three was it was a sketch about a married couple that lost their kid at Disney World, and the employee that they're dealing with to help them find the kid is a guy that just got back from anger management corrective training at Disney World, and I thought this would have been a great sketch for us.
What's wrong with being lost at Disney World? What a great place to be lost if you're a kid.
Yeah, you get some free candy maybe.
Get on some rides.
Yeah.
Single rider lines. You don't have to like wait for your mom and dad anymore. I'll let the kid be lost.
Okay, dude, so your kid's 5 years old, right? And lost in Disney World. You're just gonna let the kid be lost?
Well, which park?
We're in the Magic Kingdom.
We're in the Magic Kingdom? Well, okay, it gets a little crowded there, and we can't get a drink, so it's probably not the best place to be lost.
Yeah, there's no beer in the Magic Kingdom, so...
So sad.
Plus, it's probably where if I'm in Disney World and I got a kid, that kid's better be in eye shot of me like the entire time.
Yeah.
The place has got to be loaded with pedophiles, man.
It is amazing. We have an annual pass to Disney, so we go up a couple times a year, and it is amazing how little attention some of these parents pay to their kids. Like you see, a 3 or 4 year old like wandering like 500,000 feet away from their parents, and you're like, what the hell, man? Like anybody could grab that kid.
On the other end of the spectrum, you see 9-year-olds in strollers. So
that's true. Yeah,
you got to find a balance in between there.
9-year-olds in strollers.
Oh yeah, that is my biggest pet peeve. Every time I go into the amusement park, I spend half the day going, that kid is too old for a fucking stroller. What are you doing? I don't actually say this to them, but I
say it to me a lot.
Yeah.
This should be a bit, though. How have you guys not done this as a bit? Either of you. I think because both of you want it. It's good material. do you ever, you two having a conversation about something and then you get like into an argument about who can use that as material?
I think we have just a different enough of approach that we don't really think of overlapping material too much.
Not too much, yeah. Once in a while, we'll come up with a tag for each other's stuff, and then it becomes...
Really? But you're never in a conversation where the conversation ends up starting to get really funny, and then you're both kind of at the same time like, I want to use that.
I don't know if that's ever really happened.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, if it depends on who started the conversation and who's came up with, like, I guess whoever got the funniest line in there wins.
Yeah. I think whoever gets the laugh line gets the bid.
Exactly.
Okay. I think, all right, if I'm your comedy judge and you're going to, and you say, let's just say you're both in an argument about the 9-year-old in the stroller, who wants to do the 9-year-old in the stroller bit? I think I would have to give it to John. Because him getting angry about the 9-year-old.
Yeah. That is absolutely his bit.
The anger with you isn't there, but you were the one that brought it up.
I was the one who brought it up, but that is absolutely John's bit. That is something that bothers him.
Yeah.
He points it out to me every single step of the way. I could talk about that. Yes, I know, the 9-year-old is too big. Enough. Have another drink.
Yeah. See, I think it is like we don't really work on our stuff together before we write stuff. Like we give each other, like we talk about what we think about each other's sets, and like if somebody does a new joke, we'll talk about what we think worked about it or didn't work about
Both
it.
Both of you do material about guns, right?
I don't do anything about guns.
Yeah, you don't really have anything about guns.
No?
I don't think so.
Maybe I'm thinking that you had something about guns, but you don't.
I don't think I do.
No, I don't. Yeah, I can't think of anything you do.
No, because I don't particularly like guns, so I don't think I would talk about them.
Right, I thought your material was about how you don't like guns.
No.
Yeah, I mean,
your material is about how you don't like
anti-gun.
Anti-gun.
Yeah.
You have a couple anti-gun jokes. Maybe one or
a
two.
little bit, yeah. There's only one that I tell routinely, but I've written a couple other ones. Yeah.
I think anti-gun material might be important, like down here in Florida. But I doubt. Do you think you could go to like South Carolina and tell those same jokes?
That particular joke, yes, because I think it's just kind of a different take on the gun issue. Because like the ultimate point of that joke is, I think we need to have anti-gun commercials like we used to have anti-drug commercials, and I think that that's not something that you hear a lot. So I think even if you're somebody, like I don't know if I would tell it in like at like an NRA convention or something, but beyond that, I think people can, even if they don't agree with it.
You know what? Why don't you tell? Can you tell the joke on the podcast, and then we can discuss it?
Yeah. I mean, it's a longer joke.
All right, go ahead, tell the joke.
Yeah,
we got about 10 minutes left, so we can do this.
I'll start it. I started by asking. I say that I'm happy that weed is getting more and more legal in America. I think it's a good thing. Whether or not you use weed, we can all agree that it's not something you deserve to go to prison for. But the fact that it's getting more and more legalized makes me remember all of the ridiculous anti-marijuana commercials that used to be on TV. The ones like, this is your brain on drugs, and all that. And there was one of those commercials that always stood out in my mind, and it's a true commercial. It's on YouTube. You can look it up when you go home if you don't believe it. But the commercial starts off, it's two kids. They're sitting in their dad's study, smoking the marijuanas, as kids do. And one of the kids reaches into his dad's desk, and he pulls out a gun. The other kid goes, "Whoa, man, is that even loaded?" The kid with the gun goes, "No, let me show you," and then shoots his brother in the chest. As we've all done after, partaking in the wacky tobacco. Like, who here can honestly say they haven't murdered a sibling after indulging in the devil's lettuce? Like, that commercial is ridiculous. Number one, because that would never happen. And number two, how is that not an anti-gun commercial? Like, it was the gun that killed the kid, not the weed. And that made me realize that that's what we should do. We should have anti-gun commercials the way we used to have anti-weed commercials. Like, this is your brain. This is your brain splattered against a wall because somebody shot you in the head with a fucking gun. Any questions? That's kind of the end of the bit. But
all right, so, and I can agree with you. In a place like this, living in a metropolitan area like Florida, where there's people to the left of me, there's people to the right of me, there's people in front of me, there's people in back of me. But if you're like in a place like South Carolina, or like in any of these Midwestern states where you just go outside and shoot guns and that's all there is to do.
I think one thing that the gun debate recently has shown after the Parkland shooting is that this is a debate all over the place. It's not just Florida. It's not just metropolitan areas. Yes, there are places where there definitely are more gun friendliness, but I think there's people on both sides of the aisle anywhere you go.
Right. I think part of the goal of a comedian is making people see your point of view. Like, even if they don't necessarily agree with it, like, they can see where you're coming from. And I think that joke, because it contrasts the gun issue with such a clearly ridiculous thing on the drug issue, which I think most people across the country agree that weed should be legalized, and that the wave of anti-marijuana propaganda was ridiculous. So if you can contrast that to the gun argument, I think it can show. I think people, even if they don't agree with what I'm saying, can get what I'm saying and find amusement from it.
Okay. Well, especially after the Fort Lauderdale airport shooting.
Yeah.
The high school shooting that just happened here in Florida. It's probably opinions about guns should be out there. Especially the anti-gun. I want to hear the anti-gun opinions on stage. But at the same time, it's such a tough debate, man. Guns.
It is. I mean, and it's hard when you bring any serious issue into comedy, because regardless of what your stance is, if it's a polarizing issue, somebody's going to have the opposite stance. So you're risking offending people, which you don't really want to do, but I also wouldn't want to have an act that's so bland it doesn't offend anybody ever.
I mean, there's a difference between, it's a fine line between offending someone and making them think. And I'm hoping that more people, can do that. I think, that's definitely a goal. And it's not that difficult down here, although I've been to clubs in the area where you run into people who they don't want to hear anything that's not what they think.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets hard.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I like about comedy is you can introduce ideas in kind of a safer way, because, like, when people debate about an idea, especially nowadays, if you're debating something on Facebook, it's always instantly anger on both sides. But if you dress something in comedy, if you make somebody laugh, even if they don't agree with your point, they've heard it in a way that they're not reacting to in like such an angry way. So it stirs up more thought. I think
It's social media has made everything more difficult.
Yeah.
Because it's like, here's my position, deal with it.
right.
And that's what makes people argumentative.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And there's also a difference between doing a set, at 11 o'clock at night at the Funky Buddha, and the people in the audience hear it and whether they like it or are offended by it or whatever. But then it goes on, Facebook or YouTube or Twitter the next day, and it's listened to in a whole different context, and people jump on things.
Well, isn't
now.
it interesting though? Standing on stage and telling somebody your point of view, that point of view is more malleable
yes.
than
yeah.
saying something on the internet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it really should be the other way around when you think about it, because when you stand on stage, and it's almost like, I feel like truer feelings are expressed on stage than feelings that you just like had and decided to just regurgitate onto the internet.
I think the difference is when you're on stage, you have to at least be somewhat accountable for what you're saying, because you're right there saying it. Like, the people see you say, like, when you say something on Facebook or on Twitter or whatever, there's an element of separation. Like, you feel, even though you're saying it under your name, there's an anonymity to it that lets people go farther than they would if you were saying, like, you would say something to somebody online that you would never say to their face. Like, if you're arguing with somebody that you've never met on Facebook, you might call them a total fucking moron in 2 sentences. You would never say that to them if you were at a bar and that same conversation started happening. You wouldn't be like, "You asshole, you're totally a fucking moron," without...
Which is interesting, because I think you just saw that I was called the C word a few times the other day.
Yeah.
A post that I...
Right.
Before we end, I just want to read this message to the people out there in podcast land that John Hyne sent me the other day. This guy is just such a sweetheart of a guy. I just want the world to know when I read this message. Oh, hold on. Let's see. I got it here. You sent this to me. You sent this to me the other morning.
Yeah.
Did you tell him to send me this, Rachel? Or?
I did not tell him to send you that. We were talking about you, though.
You were. I was the topic of conversation.
Yeah.
And this was I won't mention the name of the famous comic, but a argument. I asked a famous comic to be on the podcast, and there was an email exchange, and then there was a huge argument on Facebook that lasted hours and hours and hours.
It went for a while.
So I was the topic of conversation, and John sent me this. It was just, "Hey man, I wanted to take a second and reach out to you. I know I don't know you very well, so I may be completely off the mark on this, but you seem like you're going through something. Since you lost your job, it seems like you've been in a bit of a spiral. You're drinking a lot, having odd performances on stage, and picking weird fights with people. I'm not saying this to attack you or start any type of trouble. It just seems your behavior has become increasingly erratic lately. And with everything going on in the news with celebrities killing themselves, it's got me concerned. Again, I don't know you that well, and all this stuff might be in my imagination, or just how you are, which is fine. You aren't hurting anyone, so if you want to be eccentric, then be eccentric, and more power to you. But if it is something else, I just wanted to reach out and let you know there are people who care and don't want to see anything bad happen to you. Anyway, that's it. If you feel like you want to talk, I'm around. If I'm completely off base, then just ignore this whole thing, and I won't bring it up again. Wish you well." And I agree. I have been acting quite eccentric lately, and I definitely had an off performance the night we did that Trello show where we were discussing the poster earlier. And I just want to thank you, John. I want to thank you, Rachel, for being on the podcast. And I'm glad to know that you guys care.
We do.
Yeah, you know, I really enjoy the community we have down here, and I think it's because we all kind of care about each other, at least to some extent, and I like to try to put that out there if I feel like somebody needs it.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up for the 1,000 Comics podcast. Is there anything you guys want to plug? Any upcoming shows you wanna throw out there or anything?
Well, I'm hosting at Nippers in Boca tomorrow.
Yes, we're both on that show tomorrow.
We're both on
Say
that
the
show
date of the
tomorrow
show because
Oh,
I
yeah,
might
yeah.
be posting this tomorrow.
It would be the 21st of this month of June.
And we've got a show. I don't remember the name of the venue. I'm so sorry, but I will put it on Facebook. It's next Wednesday, which I think is the 26th in West Palm Beach.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast, guys.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.